Hello everybody, this is RRPG here, and I'm here to present another 2 cents video on the 2 cents block for you all. Now, before I get started with this video, I have a question to propose to all of you. Is the install base from the Wii actually migrating to the PlayStation 4? Sony believes that's to be the case. In a recent interview with Eurogamer, Sony Computer Entertainment President and Group CEO Andrew House explains that a lot of the install base from the Wii have migrated to the PlayStation 4 and attributed to the growth of their newest next-generation console. And this is what he said based on an excerpt from the interview. Our big opportunity is to welcome back an audience much earlier in the life cycle that possibly bought into the Wii previously. Whether it's based on this, a really good all-around entertainment device for a family, in addition to having great games, our consumer data suggests some of those people are already coming in now, and that's what's contributing to the really great sales we've had. Now, before I go any further, I just want to make a couple of disclaimers here, or just a couple of things that I actually wanted to say. Now, as I've always said with my RRPG 2 cents videos, everything that I say is based on subjective opinions. And I don't believe that, everything I say is fact, as I believe that there are certain things on what, certain people say could be actually truthful or things that need to make them set their priorities straight. That's what I've always said about my 2 cents videos. So whatever you do not take this video in thinking that it's the full truth. It's not, but you have the right to express your own opinion if you believe that certain subject is either right or wrong, just like me. Secondly, I want to say that the hardware of the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita is very compelling. I do like how sleek and next-gen that both the hardware look. But until Sony sets some priorities straight with the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita, I'm going to be very critical on some of their decisions that they've been making as of recently. And speaking of which, I am going to be kind of critical with the decisions that they're making as of right now when they are talking about this particular subject. And until actual data is shown to the public about what Andrew House is talking about, I still call it that this statement is very questionable. In my opinion, the PlayStation 4 hardware has actually done well because of Sony hyping up their new gaming console ever since they first revealed, what their next generation console was before E3, which was back in February 2013, where they only showed off the controller, what are some of the functions that it can do, as well as some of the games that they actually brought about. So that's how I felt that the PlayStation 4 has, garnered a lot of hype. And it's been like that for about half a year after the console release, and there were some games that actually did really well, or actually are really done well for the PlayStation 4, but not every one of them is going to strike gold, when you think about it. And as I said, it's been like that for about half a year since the console launched, but as of right now, I'm just beginning to see that magic is starting to fade. I mean, in my personal opinion. As of right now, there are hardly any games out on the platform, with some new ones coming every now and then, whether if it's like episodic DLC, like the new infamous Second Son DLC that's coming out, that big DLC update, as well as the new The Order 1886, which is coming out next year. There have hardly been a lot of games out on the platform with some ones that actually do contribute to the growth, and I think Watch Dogs on the PlayStation 4 actually contributed to profitability for Ubisoft based on what they said as of recently with their first quarter or their second quarter financial results. And, the Wii U also suffered the same problem because of the long drought in 2013. They banked on third parties to try to build up the system, but some of them didn't even meet their sales. Some of them didn't even take Nintendo very seriously on this. Some games ended up getting canceled, while others ended up either, getting canceled, or for the most part, they ended up getting delayed because of poor, irrational decisions. I'm also going to say this right here. Most of the people who bought the Wii were mostly the casuals, and they moved on to other platforms. So it wasn't like a lot of us who were Nintendo fans or those who actually bought into Nintendo consoles, it wasn't like most of us actually bought into the Wii. No, it was mostly based on the casuals because they actually enjoyed what the Wii was and, some of the games that actually contributed to their enjoyment factor. And, when they moved on to other platforms, they found that smartphones and tablets were the next big thing, and they just kind of migrated over to them because, you can even You can go online, you can play games on it, you could check email and do all that crap. Microsoft also tried doing the same thing with trying to migrate the Wii audience over to the Xbox 360 because they had the Kinect. But it wasn't doing so hot when the peripheral launched, and people weren't even taking it seriously because nobody wanted because people thought that the motion control gimmick with what Microsoft was doing was being taken way too far, even more far than the Wii. And there wasn't a lot of games that actually attributed well for the Kinect, and a lot of people just kind of threw it out as an afterthought. And when going back to Sony, they also tried to capture the Wii's magic with the PlayStation Move, but guess where that got them? Nobody bought into the Move because even though it was exactly the same, or some of the functions, or the function of the controller was exactly the same like the Wiimote Nunchuck, but nobody really bought into it. It wasn't Sony's bread and butter. So when looking at some of their past mistakes, even when looking at themselves right now, I am saying that what Sony is doing, or how they're handling themselves as of right now, has been very abysmal. And as I said, they haven't shown a vast majority of first-party games for quite some time, as they're pretty much just banking off third parties to help support their system. It's like, okay, you have all these third-party games that are, not only coming to your system, but coming to other platforms, but it's like, what can you do, Sony? What are some of the games that are coming under your belt that you can actually appeal to all of us? It's one of those things that in order for hardware to grow, it's got to have its own software, not only from just third-party standards, but also from first-party standards. And until we actually see a system that actually strikes that balance, you're needing to bring in more first-party support for the PlayStation 4. And what you're doing right now with all that money that you have, and since you're really in big trouble with all the other divisions that you're trying to close down because the PlayStation brand is actually profitable, what you're doing with all that money, hemorrhaging it to other things that you consider first priority, will probably be dead at arrival, like PlayStation Now. I mean, the whole streaming service that you acquired from Gaikai back, I think, in 2011 or 2012, yeah, it's a really big deal. I mean, a lot of people are trying to see whether or not if that actually works. And, there are some things that don't actually work at first of all, but it will get better in the long run. So I think what Sony is doing with the PlayStation Now, it's going to hurt them at first, but it will get better as time will go by. And as well as other things like the PlayStation TV, where you can actually play PlayStation Vita games on your TV. And, speaking of the PlayStation Vita, that handheld is on the verge of death because of there not being any more awareness to the product. And what I'm talking about by awareness, I'm talking about that Sony hasn't really been hyping up the Vita as well as they should be. And they said that they are bringing in 100 games to the Vita during their E3 presentation, but they didn't even mention what those games are, and they didn't even mention if those games were actually going to be groundbreaking to the Vita's success. And, I'm not going to be talking about the Vita that much longer, but I'm just going to say that I have a video based on what I feel about the PlayStation Vita's current stance is going to be coming up very soon, so be on the lookout for that. So, in the end, I'm just going to say, to wrap this up, I'm just going to say that Sony really needs to set its priorities straight right now with the PlayStation brand, because how things are now, it's not working for them. And I'm beginning to see that arrogance that they had during the PlayStation 3 era is coming back to haunt them. And what I mean is that they need to stop worrying about trying to build up from other install bases from previous hardware, which is okay, but don't try to bank off trying to try to build off from another install base onto your new hardware, because most of the time that's not always going to work, as that's more of a crapshoot when you think about it. Not everybody's going to get into the hype for next generation hardware immediately, because they actually need things in order for them to be convinced. And for the most part, that one thing is mostly software that actually attributes to the growth of hardware. Nintendo even had that same problem, as I mentioned, and now since they have a good slew of software coming out from their end as of right now, growth within the Wii U hardware has actually gotten better. And, as I said from before, it's only going to hurt them in the long run if they continue to bank on third parties and hardly themselves, because of them not attributing a lot of their growth from first-party titles. And it doesn't seem like they have a lot of first-party titles as of right now or coming out in the future. And they really need to quit, bleeding that money towards third-party games to where they either have exclusive content or coming out on the platforms first. Well, not only just them, but Microsoft also needs to get out of that hubris as well. But, as I said, what they're doing, it's not working. I just want to see Sony actually do the right thing and worry about actually bringing in more games that's under them for both of their hardwares. Not do all this other stuff that's radically different and just irrational in my opinion. Everything else should be set second priority, while their software and growth to grow the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita needs to take full priority as of right now. So, in the end, and as I said this before, the statement what Andrew House said is very questionable. And it just seems like whenever Andrew House gets himself in an interview, they are mostly done from corporate standpoints as they talk about things, but they just have no actual proof to back them up or with them to actually help them out in the matter. And some of the third-party games out there like Skylanders, Just Dance, and Disney Infinity that are not only just aimed towards everybody but for casuals, it really hasn't been attributing to the growth of the PlayStation platforms. And until they realize their arrogance as of what they're talking about right now is coming back from the start of the PlayStation 3 era, it's only going to hurt them from here on out. So, Sony, I'm just going to say you definitely need to watch your step with how you're treating your business strategies based on the PlayStation brand, because until you realize that what you're doing when you're bleeding all this money towards other things that may not seem like it's necessary, it's only going to continue to hurt you more. And you really, really need to get out of that loophole that you're in, or else you're not going to be around much longer. Seriously, it's not funny. But I hope that you really do have a brighter future ahead of you, but in the end, it just seems like what you're doing currently, it's like getting closer to death's doorway, but it doesn't have to be that in the long run. I mean, where was that magic that you had during the PlayStation 2 era that really made me enjoy the slew of content that you had? I mean, it wasn't like that I enjoyed the content on the other platforms, I did, but Sony actually was doing right with the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 brands, but ever since PS3 and up until now, they just haven't been doing so hot. But anyway, I just hope that all changes, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So that's all I have to say on the matter, so I want to know what you all think. Do you guys think that what Andrew House is talking about, or what Sony's talking about, is truthful or not? And if you do believe that that what Sony is talking about is actually factual, then let me know why. Or if you believe that what Sony is saying is not factual, then also be sure to let me know why you feel that way too. Be sure to rate this video as well as leaving your positive and negative feedback down in the comments. And also be sure to hit that subscribe button underneath that video, as more support from you guys means that more content is coming from me in the future that you won't even find anywhere else. And until next time, this is Double RPG signing off by saying Godspeed and game on, gamers. Have a good one.